Hello there, welcome to Theobodium, and welcome to Satisfactory. This is going to be my first official actual gameplay video of this game, besides just a review of the game like I did last time. And as I mentioned in my last video, this video is really just going to be me going through and talking you through what's happened already on this world, and then we're going to get into a lot more interesting stuff next time on Satisfactory. But yeah, if I haven't explained the premise of the Satisfactory series, pretty much what I want to do is gradually go through the process of recording me building massive spectacles and really cool things, and then I'll post a video a month where I edit together all of the footage of me making it, and I show it off and walk you guys through the final product as well, and that's kind of what I want to do with this series. Also, those things, those Figmas gifs, getting all over my stuff infuriate me, but I think the break that I took from this game luckily made it to where these things aren't going to be spawning all over the place, so I'm hoping that that's it for those. So this is a world that I started playing with my brother. He may or may not show up as a guest sometimes in the world, but overall this world is going to be mine. Up until this point, however, he did play with me pretty much constantly, but from this point forward, I think it's mostly going to just be me, and he may pop up as a guest sometimes on this world. Of course, it all started with this structure here, which of course was originally orange. Pay no mind to the randomly colored items about. I recently got the paint gun and just decided to go rampant with it. So I'm really not going to talk through the specifics of this. If you've played the game before, you know how the beginning of the game goes, but kind of plopped my thing down in an inconvenient place here in the middle of nowhere. And then we actually started to build a massive factory right about in this area that just, it was absolutely absurd and it took up everything. In fact, I don't know why I can't just show it to you, so let's save over that. I'm going to load back about 2 or 3 hours of gameplay, because the last thing that I did in my match was actually removing our old factory. It was kind of sad to do, honestly, because I just kept thinking about the fun time of me and my brother, like, making all of the stuff. But in the end, it was time for it to go. It was a mess. And in the end, I realized I could always go back to an old save and check it out. Here is the monstrosity of an old factory that we had. By monstrosity, I really just mean that it's disorganized, and I don't even know if it's powered anymore. At this autosave, it definitely was for a very long time, mainly with bioreactors before we upgraded to coal. But it's just an absolute mess of a factory. It really is. And it gets worse as you go in, because this is just the basics. This was our steel production line, and it goes back there to a... Yeah, you can kind of see it right there, where my reticle is. That's the smelter, or not, maybe it's not called a smelter, I honestly don't remember. Foundry, that's what it's called. The foundry is what would make the steel ingots, and then that would go through this mass absolute aberration of a storage thing, and it kind of just collected in the storage for a while, and then it would run down this massive conveyor belt all the way through here to be made into steel beams, and over here it was going to be made into steel pipes. Then if we run back over here, you can see crap loads of storage that was being routed from the rest of the base. This is plate storage. What's above it is rod storage. You can actually still see that storage because this is before I moved it all. Then of course over here we have our concrete making stuff, and that's just weaving about everywhere so that I have more storage for it. Concrete everywhere. Here's where the limestone's being imported. So that's what the old factory looked like. That's what me and my brother ran off of for a very long time. But now, of course, I'm going to walk you through this new factory and how hard it was to make. That old factory was an absolute mess, and it's so nice to see it gone. Like, it's just so clear to see it gone. It's just open land. Why is there a random power pole here? I think I forgot to dismantle something. Oh well, goodbye, the final remnant of an old base. So before I go into the analyzation of this thing itself, of course I'm going to talk about how I made this factory, because this thing was honestly really fun to make and really frustrating at points, and it really just showed me, even though I already thought I knew, it really just kind of showed me what this game is all about and how incredible it can be when you're making stuff. So of course my aim for the factory was to make it as efficient as possible. I'm not going to go back into the factory, but I am going to give you a bird's eye view from up here, although I do want to get to a better location, which would be up there, to give you an even better bird's eye view. But from here you can see the general process of very laggy imagery in the background, and you can just see that this is an absolutely massive land platform that I built. Of course, I'm sure it's not massive in comparison to other stuff you've seen on YouTube. I know that I'm still technically a beginner in comparison to a lot of hardcore Satisfactory players, but this still took a long time to make. A majority of the 66 hours that I've spent playing this game have been spent in this world, and a majority of the time that I've spent in this world has been working towards building this factory. Of course, the first step was just doing a lot of math, figuring out what I wanted to make with the resources that I had, or with the relative estimate of the resources that I had. If I had extra, it was okay, and if I didn't have enough, then I would be fine with going to get more. And surprisingly, the biggest problem that I ran into was coal. But before I solved my coal problem, there was another problem. My brother was heading most of our research advancing our technology, and he needed oil to do so because we needed to make plastic. So this massive, absolute atrocious tube line was created that I'm just going to walk along to show you. So we're following these two, which go back to the oil tank area. And I like to call this the Sommersloop path because it has a lot of Sommersloop whips on it. This pipe here also is the water source for our original coal generators, our original 5, and it definitely served its purpose, but it's out of commission now. It's no longer pumping water, it no longer has power, and I should tear it down at some point. There's the 2 original generators, then we have these 2, which go, I'm honestly not sure where, because they're not going to our new coal generators. That's actually kind of concerning. I genuinely don't remember where this pipe leads, besides into the floor apparently. But anyways, I'm just gonna go back to the Sommersloop path and this mess of power lines that is absolutely everywhere, making sure that all these pumps can activate, because this path is honestly absolutely ridiculously long, and it was just so difficult to get everything that I needed. I also had to go back here to get a lot of iron that I wanted and a little bit of coal. So that's what you see over here is a lot of iron mainly. Actually, is it anything else? I honestly might be remembering incorrectly. I think it's just iron. Iron. Yeah, it's just iron. Lots and lots of iron coming from there. And then of course here's our first Sommersloop that we encounter on the path. Massive amounts of conveyor belts converging in the distance. It used to be that I would drive down this path all the time to get items that I needed or to find iron supply whenever I was looking for iron supply, because I ran into a massive problem when it came to my iron supply. But in the end, I actually just ended up blocking off the entire path, especially right there, where it's no longer passable with a vehicle. I didn't really mean to, but it's just, this is no longer a way I can go with vehicles. But now we're headed downhill. We're getting close to the end of the Sommersloop path. I actually forgot to show you guys the second Sommersloop, but I'll probably show it to you on the way back. But here we are getting close to the end. We're not there yet, but we're getting close. As you can see, I built all of this oil infrastructure and barely used any of it because I realized that we didn't have the infrastructure back at home base or the power to run all of it because it was absolutely atrociously power consuming, especially with all the pumps that were required to get the stuff back to base. But here you see some oil refineries, finally. I'm honestly not even sure which one the oil's coming from. Okay, it's coming from this one over here. Well, it's not coming from it, but it was at some point operational. And if I were to connect power back up to the system, then this is what would be pumping. You see how this iron is constantly moving? This is what I wanted. I didn't want it to be backlogged in any way. It's constantly moving, and as we get back to the iron machines themselves, I can show you that it's not limited by conveyor belt speed either, because I have the math worked out almost perfectly. It didn't work out perfectly, which is the whole point of the story. So 3 normal copper deposits I had mistaken for 3 normal iron deposits. So I treated them as such and hooked them up to my machines as such, and of course they weren't normal deposits of iron, they were normal deposits of copper, and so I got copper in tons of machines that were supposed to be producing iron crap, and it was just an absolute horrible experience. I had to go back through and clean out all the copper from my system. I could have just loaded an autosave, but I didn't feel like being like that. I just kind of decided to deal with my mistake and go through and deal with all the copper crap. And I have this here just so I can prove to you that it is perfectly efficient. It's producing as fast as it's shooting out on the conveyor belt. Nothing is stopped up. This factory is currently being absolutely efficient. So of course I was very annoyed by the fact that that had happened, but I went on with it. I fixed the problem by getting the copper out of the system, but I had to go all the way here to get more iron. There's the other Sommersloop whip that I didn't show you guys. So while I'm on this conveyor belt Mark IV, if you look back there, you can actually see the water source for the modern coal power, which we'll be passing by soon, and I will show you that. Also, this limestone comes from nearby and meets up on top of this iron. Then the limestone curves off to go to its own spot. But all this iron, as you can see, goes over to that production right there, which we'll be talking about soon. And some iron comes from over there, that massive behemoth over there. Some of the iron comes from there because I have a lot of iron going into those 22 smelters. That is 22 smelters there, and about 50 crafters are over there. Now I'm approaching this massive behemoth. As you can see, this part of the factory is still a little bit of a mess. It's just for shoving materials into the space elevator, of course. Of course, I haven't refined that yet, which I guess makes sense. Here we have a coal right there. Most of that's iron, some of it's coal, and also some of it is copper. I do have a little bit of copper in this massive machine, but only a little bit. And now we arrive at this area of this behemoth, which is remnants of the biofuel age, which is power that can still definitely be used. I believe it will continue to be used for the oil refinery purposes specifically, but of course, the king currently of my game, as far as power is concerned, is this right here, this massive coal factory that is not perfectly efficient necessarily, but will never turn off because it is perfectly self-efficient. It powers its own coal miners and its own water pumps and everything, so this thing will never turn off. It also powers that behemoth of a factory over there. Every single bit of it is powered by these 16 coal generators, my bad. And all this crap over here was used to jumpstart the factory and everything I needed for it. But if we take a look at any of these power rods, we can see how much power is being used out of the potential power. We have a 1200 max megawatt per hour, I believe is what that stands for. I'm still not sure, but that's the max capacity, and we're constantly using about 1100, and it very commonly spikes to well above 1100, as it just did. But my math ensures that it will never spike to above 1200. It will never crash the power. So here we have what is actually iron deposits over here. Some of the only ones that I thought were iron and that were actually iron that joined the behemoth of conveyor belts. I'm just going to keep calling it that, and it gets a little bit smaller as we progress closer this way. And then we have this copper conveyor belt also joining the behemoth there, so it gets even smaller. Also, keep in mind that the top 3 layers of this conveyor belt area are no longer in use because they are carrying only copper, because this is leading back to where I thought the iron deposit was. And of course, I want to talk about this. So this is something that it was just absolutely awful. I'm glad I had enough concrete on me to do it, because I was up there when I built it, and I needed a way to get back home quickly. But to my left here, the area where I would have gone back through to home, you know, normally, there was so much poisonous gas. It was like impossible to get through with a vehicle without dying. I don't even know how I managed to get through it that way, but this area that I'm about to pass into is just so awfully treacherous, and you'll see what I'm talking about when I get to the top of this ramp. Over there is my liar iron deposits, also known as copper deposits. And then here we have the coal. So the coal was the biggest problem when it came to building this factory. Besides the later copper infiltration, that doesn't really matter, that was my fault. But this coal, however, there was nothing I could do about it. The coal was so far away from my base. It was a pure deposit close to my base that I put a Mark II miner on, so I am getting 4 per second from that. But it wasn't even close to enough to operate all of the steel production that I wanted to do and all of those coal generators, because all of those things are very coal hungry. So I had to go find more coal. And so I did so to the best of my ability, which meant going very, very, very far away from base. And once I finally found it, I realized that the way back was treacherous and practically impossible. Also, I didn't mean to fall down here, but it's a good thing that I have my my concrete on me, otherwise I would have been stuck down there. I'm getting up here so that you can see what I'm talking about. There's massive amounts of just poisonous gas everywhere. And it goes along through there too. I don't know if it'll render, but it's really like through there as well. And I genuinely don't know how I got here alive. I know that I went in that direction first and went around this massive cavern, because I remember seeing this like massive cavern and thinking that it would just be death to go inside, so I couldn't do it in general. So I went through there and I guess went around a lot of the poisonous gas. But then I just entered this area that was just absolutely full of poisonous gas. I definitely didn't completely avoid it on the way here. Like, I almost died multiple times for poisonous gas, but I thought it was okay. I was a bit overwhelmed by it, but I didn't realize it would be so bad until I was trying to come back, and I literally could not find the way that I came in from. I couldn't figure out how to get back without building something like this. As you can see, though, I have the Coal 2 and Coal 3 markers there, and Coal 4 is all the way over there. Coal 1 is the one that's closer to base that was a pure deposit. I had to go through and mark all this so I wouldn't lose it. There's more poisonous gas. And then I had to figure out a way to get home without triggering all the poisonous gas, and so I built that massive behemoth of a ramp, and it just was ridiculous. Also, I didn't really originally intend to walk all this way for this video, but I can't find a car, so I don't know where I put it, so I'm just gonna walk. Finally, after all this time of walking, we finally get to our first actual coal miner, which is switching between green and yellow, I think, because the coal is a little bit backed up because the coal generators are eating a little bit slower than I anticipated, which is fine. It just means that, you know, the coal gets backed up, which, you know, isn't a terrible thing. Here we have two normal coal generators, though, both producing with minor Mark IIs, And then I needed literally 1 more coal per second to have my factory working at full efficiency, and so this conveyor belt exists. It was very scary and difficult, actually, to go through this whole forest maze area that I honestly wouldn't be able to find my way through regularly unless I had the conveyor belts. Eventually entering into this massive forest biome over here with massive trees that make it even harder to see, only to figure out that the coal was on top of a massive mountain that I had to then build up to and figure out a way to drive up and also get conveyor belts down. The whole thing was just a mess. And just for reference, this whole trip takes roughly probably 10 minutes walking, I would say. I'm gonna cut as much of it out as possible, but it probably takes about 10 minutes walking to get all the way to this area. I think we're finally getting pretty close here. From base, I'm talking from base. I'm not talking about in between the 2 coal deposits, although there is a significant walk between these 2 coal deposit areas. Probably 3 or 4 minutes. This one's almost as far away from the other coal deposits as they are from the base. Then I had to build this massive ramp to get up to this massive tree area because I realized that the coal was here, and then at the top of this hill we finally reach our coal. I can say that this whole experience really made me appreciate the biomes of this world a lot more, and it really was just a cool experience. As tedious as it was sometimes, it was really a cool experience to see everything that this game had in store biome-wise. I mean, I don't even think I've seen all the biomes. I've definitely seen 3 of them, but I believe there's 4 major biomes, and I don't think I've seen the 4th one yet. But yeah, that's the final coal deposit, but I'm going a little bit further because I like the view from up here. There you can kind of see the ramps that I had to build. There's that ramp, and then you can see that curves off, and that's the massive ramp that goes down, all approaching that location. Anyways, enough sightseeing. Time for me to head back to base. I always love sliding down this massive slope. Also, I've realized now that I was stupid to not find my tractor because there's literally markers on my mini-map of where the tractors are. So, I'm dumb. I totally have experience in this game. I'm totally not stupid. Here's the copper. We're following the copper into the base, and I'm not going to explain the mathematics and the logistics of all this crap because that would honestly just take forever, and I don't think anyone wants to watch that. If you do want that type of video, then let me know. I can make that type of video in the future where I analyze how you can like do factories and like perfect mathematics for factories and stuff like that. But as it is right now, I'm just going to keep the math to myself and just talk about the overall picture. So here we have 4 smelters making this copper and a whole bunch of crafters, which turns that all into wire. Well, actually, no, that's not true. It turns most of it into wire, and it turns some of it into these copper thingies, copper sheets. We've got 1 full per second flow of concrete being made back here, with all the limestone being divvied up in, again, mathematics that I'm not going to explain, but basically all you need to know is that this stuff is divvying it up to make sure that each one of these 4 crafters is getting 3 limestone every 4 seconds, and it actually works out perfectly. The flow's working perfectly, the output works perfectly, and that's why you get a steady flow of 1 concrete coming out here per second with no backflow in any of the other concrete machines. None of them are held back in any way. They're all crafting at perfect efficiency. That's one of the reasons why this factory took me so long to build. I also refuse to have any clipping whatsoever, even with the materials on the conveyor belts. So yeah, it also took me a long time because of that. But if we walk over here, we get to my steel production. There's a lot of mathematics going on back there to divvy up to make sure all this stuff is getting what it needs, which is 3 coal and 3 iron every 4 seconds. But just the sheer amount of iron and coal that I was divvying up made this look absolutely atrocious, and also kind of cool back there. But it's not necessarily that the mathematics are that complicated, honestly. It's just that it's atrocious to build and very complicated to mentally picture. But it took a while, but I did it, and it's working at almost perfect efficiency. It's a bit backlogged because of the whole copper thing, because this is where the copper ended up. So some of these machines are ahead in some items and behind in others. As you can see, this stops every 3 seconds for 1 second because it only needs 3 iron and 3 coal every 4 seconds, but it's getting a little bit more than that because stuff was backlogged. Again, that's because of the copper issue. I could easily solve that actually by just doing this, and it will fix the issue. Well, it might not completely remove the backlog, but over time, if I keep doing that, it will completely remove the backlog. Actually, as you can see, it's already beginning to get better because you can see the spacing out is already happening for the iron. Anyways, enough about the mathematics of that. More simple mathematics happening here, but stuff that divvies up all of this steel into 6 full 1 per second steel flows, so 6 steel ingots per second, which then gets divvied up all the way over here to make 2 steel beams per second, and I think 1 steel pipe every 2 seconds is what this amounts to. No, sorry, 2 steel pipes every 3 seconds is what this amounts to. So it's a little more than 1 steel pipe every 2 seconds. And then all of this junk is being taken back to the storage, which I will analyze in a minute. Now let's go to the iron production. This is all more miscellaneous production over here, because you've got steel, copper, and concrete. This, all of this, every single piece is just pure iron. So here we have 22 iron conveyor belts. Each is outputting 1 iron ingot every 2 seconds. That's 11 iron ingots per second being output through this massive amalgamation of machinery. Here we have some iron bar manufacturing / purposeful overflow. I have some iron bars, which I believe this is pretty much it for the iron bars that I have that are doing this. That these just go all the way around and go straight into storage, because I wanted to have iron bars in case there's something that I miss that I need to make with them. I don't want to not have access to iron bars. The same with these set of iron plates, 1 per second flow of plates being put into storage for later use if I need it. The rest of these plates that you see being made all have a destination to be made into something else very soon before they enter the storage. And the same with these iron bars, most of which will become that mass amount of screws that you see there. We have almost perfect screw creation here, but not quite. But the little bit of overflow is coming out there. It's a little bit of excess that I had, and that is going to be used for rotors, which you'll see soon. All of this is rotor production, by the way. This is also screws being made for rotor production, because I forgot about it at some point and jammed it into the mathematics later. All this crap over here, however, which these iron bars flow in from all the way back there where I showed you, it's 2 per second iron bars total, 1 per second on each conveyor belt, flows into these 8, maybe it's 16. Sorry, not 16 or 8. It is 12 crafters. These 12 crafters that are all producing screws, which then on the other side here you can see all come out to be crap loads of screws. I think it's 8 screws per second is what this amounts to be. I am correct. It is 8 screws per second. You can count if you want, and then add to that what's being used for the rotors on top of that. And we have this massive blue thing, which I love the color blue. So this is honestly pretty cool to me to see all this blue stuff just flowing through. But back to the point, then we have our plates coming from way far back, still right here. These plates begin to get split off, and these screws begin to get split off. If you play the game, I'm sure you can recognize that this is the recipe for reinforced iron plates. The mathematics here worked out perfectly. I am not going to go into the specifics of it, but basically there's no backflow, and there's no waiting on more pieces to come in either. And you're getting a perfect 1-to-1 ratio as it can be. Every 12 seconds, a plate comes out, and there will never be more or less than that. It's perfectly efficient, and all of these first 8 machines are doing that, so we're getting, in total, 2 reinforced iron plates every 3 seconds. Or, I guess, more accurately, 8 every 12 seconds, but that just works out to be the same. These last 2 are basically the overflow of screws and rods that I didn't originally work into the math, so it doesn't work out quite as well. They are definitely waiting on some stuff, and there will definitely be some overflow of screws, but I've made absolutely sure that when the overflow does happen, it enters this conveyor belt here, which takes it off into storage, and so it doesn't back other stuff up. As you can see, there's already some overflow here. Actually, these conveyor belts have stopped moving because they're waiting for iron rods, which we're in a shortage of in this area. But regardless, we do get rotors coming out at quite a slow pace, but it's a little bit faster than what one of these things could produce on their own. And we have them entering the conveyor belts here, and they run along the storage. And now time to look at all this. So we've got screws, rotors, reinforced plates, then normal plates, then rods, all the iron stuff on this conveyor belt that then goes to join in with all the stuff I showed you earlier. I also forgot to mention the wire that's being produced, cable that's being produced from the copper wire. All of this crap, steel and all, then gets moved over here to the back where it all gets sorted and stored. Here we have the screws being stored, steel beams, which have the biggest storage amount because they're being stored in these 2 things here. We have steel pipes with their own storage thing. I'm not going to go through it all, but you get the gist. Everything has its place. And this is 12 storage containers wide, and there are 11 things being stored. As I mentioned, a steel beam gets 2 rows because I'm producing 2 per second, which is faster than anything else I'm producing. Then if we look down here, you can kind of get the picture of how this works. I didn't mean to fall, but yeah, that's a good close-up of how this is working on this side. You have copper wire going into there, then you have another one of these things on the other side, which of course lifts the wire from that industrial container into this one. Then this conveyor belt then lifts it from this industrial container to that industrial container. And then if I could get up, and then over here we have this top industrial container putting it into that, and then that has the reverse process where it moves it down to the bottom container, which then gets moved down there. And flip flop, every other one has that process. and it just goes down the line. Just to give you another view, I'm going to be running alongside it down here, so you can see what it looks like from down here. It's like a massive warehouse, honestly, and I'm really proud of building this, but it took so long to build. So I just did the math really quickly to figure out exactly how many crates I have here, and it is 1,019 crates, industrial storage crates. So it's an absolutely massive amount, and it's 1,019 because this is all 1,008, and then plus those 11 down there, because as I said, there's only 11 different materials being sorted out. And of course I have nothing but Mach 4 conveyor belts going into these things, and on both ends, both top and bottom, like inputs things, specifically so that I can watch this happen whenever I pull something out. I'll just pull out some concrete as a demonstration and watch as it just fills incredibly fast, and you can just see the items pouring in. And this is exactly what I wanted for the storage, so that I can just constantly come back to this storage and this storage only. I don't have to mess with the other stuff, because whatever I take out will be immediately refilled. It's already done refilling. And the same goes for all of these, though it will take a while for a backlog to appear enough for all of these to be like that. Like, for example, the rotors specifically are going to take a long time, because you can barely even see the rotors coming out because they come out so slowly. But the storage is almost halfway full, so you know, it'll get there. So yeah, that's my factory. I realized that I made a mistake earlier when I said I only spent 66 hours in this game. It specifically says that I have 66 hours in this world, and I'd probably say about 50 of which were spent on working towards this factory, not necessarily physically building it, but, you know, getting the materials, going and finding the coal that I needed, building the infrastructure, building that crap, the 1,019 storage crates, all of the stuff that was honestly like ridiculously fun, but also very time consuming. But I'm going to do a lot more stuff like it, because this is not my end all be all factory. I will make one that is more efficient, undoubtedly, and I'll probably make one that's more efficient than that. This has a massive amount of storage so that it can hold off until I'm ready to build that factory, and so that I have all the materials that I need to build that factory, so I don't have to worry so much about all of that. But eventually this factory will retire. I probably will leave it here, though. I'm probably never going to dismantle this factory. I will probably just build the third factory elsewhere. But for now, this has been a review of my second factory. The next video will begin to get into some much more interesting stuff. I have a couple of ideas on the table about what I want to build in this world, and no, I'm not just talking about factories. Also, this is the storage facility that I was talking about, just crap loads of chests. Literally almost every single one of these chests is full, and I'm not exaggerating, this is all supplies produced by the old base. I like having it in a small little storage area down there that's really not in the way of anything. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I am really excited to get another episode to you guys of this. It's gonna be a month. I mean, they're always going to be a month out. They're always going to be on the 13th of every month. If you didn't watch the previous video and you didn't know that, or if you forgot, then yes, I would like to make that very clear. I'm going to be making one Satisfactory video a month. And the reason being is because I want to be able to spend a lot of time on these videos. This is honestly the last lazy Satisfactory video that I'm going to make. And yeah, I'm calling it out. This is a lazy video. I recognize that, especially in comparison to the videos that I have planned for Satisfactory. And you'll see what I mean by that in the future. But this is just a straight up lazy video in comparison, but that's okay, because I do need a little bit of time to develop exactly what I'm going to do for this series, especially for the first official episode where I'm going to be building something new. So I hope that you guys can really enjoy the series, because it really is going to be cool. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing it, and I'm really excited to work towards posting another video each month. There's a playlist for these videos that I will go link in the description. I didn't think about that before, but I should probably do that. I should probably go back and do it for the previous video too, honestly, because I didn't do that for the video called Welcome to Satisfactory. So if you would like to go see that video, then go ahead. If you don't know a lot about this game, it's just talking about all things Satisfactory and why I love this game so much. This game is honestly a really good experience, and you can hear all about that in my video about Satisfactory. I won't bother linking in the description, because if you click on my playlist, it'll just take you to that video first. It's the first video in the playlist, obviously. With a lot of this formality crap out of the way that I probably won't talk about a lot in future videos, because I really just want to get all the formality stuff out of the way for this series in this video, it's finally time for me to sign off this episode. I hope that you enjoyed. I most certainly did. I am very excited to get into this game more. So I hope that you guys are too. If you liked this video, then you should, well, hit the like button. And also you should consider subscribing to see more videos like it and to see the continuation of this Satisfactory series. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.